Hello.
Check,
Hello.
check, check. All right, here we go. We're gonna arm wrestle. These are the corporate people. These are the back home recipe people. It's gonna be awesome. So, Mara Greenwald with TPN, you're the social marketing manager. Carrie Silverman, director of social media for Lo Profero. Nick Evans, owner head cheese at Machismo. And Laura Fuentes, owner and founder of Momables. I'm John Reif. I'm the founder owner of East End Market, which is a food hub here in Orlando. We've got a bunch of food merchants and urban farm, a bunch of cool stuff. So we spend a lot of time in this world working with food bloggers to help promote our company in much the same way you guys do. So I'm going to give you guys each about a minute to introduce yourself. We'll work left to right or right to left for the audience, and rock and roll, Nick.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Nick Evans. I am the owner of Machismo.com. I've been writing about food and teaching people how to cook at home for about 8 years now. Last year I published my first cookbook called Love Your Leftovers. You can check it out in the back, a little booth back there. And yeah, I've posted almost 2,000 recipes on my blog, so I'm pretty active there, and I love emailing with people and using social media to see what people are cooking every day. So, yeah.
I'm Laura Fuentes, and I'm the founder of Momables.com. And what I do there in my company is I help parents make fresh food for their families. But I also blog on my personal blog, LauraFuentes.com, where I give the families the inside look of what it's really like to cook for a family. And that's where I interact with brands and work with brands and do all the campaign work.
Awesome.
Great. I'm Carrie Silverman. I'm the director of social media at Lo Profero, a digital agency in New York. I get to work with really fun food brands like Marzetti, as well as Javianas and Remy Martin.
Hi, I'm Mara Greenwald. I am the social marketing manager at TPN. It's a retail agency, but we actually do a lot of management of social platforms for brands. So I lead a lot of the social strategy of what we're going to post on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and a lot of measurement of that success. And we also do a lot of work with influencers, so a lot of influencer marketing. Hidden Valley, for example, we've done some programs with them on behalf of Walmart, and we also do a lot for the brands where we actually manage their food platforms.
Awesome. All right, so this is obviously a session about food. I know in our business we see a lot of food as a kind of common denominator for people, both full arm tattoos to penny loafer wearers. What do you guys think, in general, why is food something that is so shareable and finds engagement with in social media? Open to anybody.
I'll start, I guess. I think food is so shareable, well, one, because obviously people have to eat every day, but moreover because I think it gives people a way to make memories through sharing things with food, towards eating with other people, friends, family. So it's a way to kind of remember a fun time you had or remember an experience. And so I think food kind of ties all that together.
So I approach it on the how-to side, how to make real food and fast and quick and easy for a family. So I think the recipes I focus on to make them shareable is because I try to solve a problem that everyone has. And when the problem is solved in a quick and easy way, then naturally I'm going to hope that they'll tell someone else about it.
So kind of on that line, we had talked when we were back there about you're seeing some stuff coming in of people doing like top-down video stuff. Like, what is it about food and the way it's presented photography-wise or whatever that you guys, as brand ambassadors for this brand, are saying we like the way this looks, but maybe not this? Like, what's really standing out in food photography right now, and when are people getting it right? Like, you go, this is it.
For me, it's about the moment. Oreo was able to capture everyone and go viral when the lights went out at the Super Bowl and they said, you can still dunk in the dark. So for us, it's about being adaptive. Photography is important. You can always make sure it looks right, but for us, it's about adding the hashtag being in the moment when you're posting about food.
Okay. Let me ask you kind of on that. So when you're looking for influencers, are you looking at people that are exceptional food photography folks, or you're looking at their level of engagement on their existing content, or is it quality driven? Like when you're trying to figure out to vote between these 5 and you're going to pick 3, what is the tipping point on some of that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. We like to establish some criteria, and not really necessarily like minimums, but what we do is, for food especially, we know first of all Instagram and Pinterest are going to be huge. So that's going to help us narrow down and say, okay, we're going to look at people who have pretty significant reach on Instagram and Pinterest. And then from there, what we do is we really, really focus a lot on engagement. We're all about engagement and not reach. So if you have 100,000 followers and 100 likes, something's not adding up. So we are really looking for the people that are engaging their following, where people are commenting, I love this, I want to make this, I made this on Tuesday, things like that. And then that really helps us narrow it down. So it's not like we're setting up a minimum reach requirement or looking for something like that. Yes, we're usually looking for good food photography because that usually translates into really good engagement. So that's kind of how we set our criteria and also how we measure our success.
Okay, so it is very easy with technology in your pocket these days to take photographs or to blog or use Twitter or Instagram. How in that cluttered field do you guys come up with a unique voice that stands out from the thousands of people that are going, I have an iPhone, I want to be a food blogger? You know, how do you create a unique voice, and what is yours? Like, what is your take? What do people think of you as?
Sure, yeah. So I think I sort of present myself as a food blog that people can relate to, that they can go to and see something that they could make in their own kitchen. And hopefully I relay that and give them confidence through the photos. So the photos should sort of teach, should inspire, and I hopefully translate that well through photography. So.
Yeah, I try to incorporate different media assets like videos, perhaps not in my first round of creating a post, but sometimes I'll go back, that was such a great recipe, it really deserves a how to make it video. And so that really brings a let's make it together type of visual, all under 2 minutes for sure, short, quick, because if I can teach someone how to make something and inspire them to do it at 6 o'clock at night in just 2 minutes, that's, for me, that's success right there. So, you know, quick, shareable moments in different mediums, for sure.
Okay, so kind of like actionable, relevant, like easy to consume. Because
Right.
I feel like, you know, you look at the landscape of it, and from someone that's not food blogging and taking food photography every day, I'm thinking I see the bacon-wrapped, deep-fried Twinkie as the shock value post, and that's like the
Right.
low-hanging fruit, and I'm sure that's not what you guys want either. So how do you know, get, like, how hands-on are you with the folks that are doing sponsored content with you to say, look, we really don't want the extreme, we want something, like, what is the alternative to that? That if someone goes, I want to stand out to these brands because I'm going to do something so crazy, but maybe it's not congruent with the brand. And so what are you looking for that's not the deep-fried bacon-wrapped Twinkie?
Well, for us, I mean, we like the deep fried bacon Twinkie because we know there's a niche for that, but it's really finding the right niche for our brand and having the influencers post, you know, that for that niche. So, for example, for Marzetti brands, we have veggie dip, and we tapped into this niche behavior of extreme dipping with extreme athletes. So we're having extreme athletes actually dip the food, and that's a niche, you know, that you can combine with food, and you know, sort of compete with the weirdest stuff out there.
I see a partnership with Red Bull, like,
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
skydiving, dipping, you know.
Yeah, we'll talk to them.
Yeah, nice. So how hands-on are you guys with your sponsored brand ambassadors, let's say? Like, how much are you going, here's the PDF, do not stray from this, you know?
So we always establish some guidelines and a background on the brand. I mean, first of all, we really identify influencers that we feel align with the brand. If they don't align with us, then we're not going to start the relationship in the first place. And then from there, you know, we set a couple guidelines. There's some brands that, you know, where they don't like a bite taken out of their food for some reason, or certain things that might indicate if it's a packaged item that it didn't arrive the right way. So little things like that, but to be perfectly honest, really, the reason that we are working with food influencers and bloggers is they're the experts in the space. So we want to give them the creative freedom to be experts and to really create great content. So we find that if anytime there's ever too many parameters placed, the content that comes back isn't going to be as great as it potentially could be.
But
So.
if I may add to that, as an influencer, when I'm creating, I always go to the brand before I even get started and go, hey, I know you kind of like this idea, but let me show you how I'm going to take it from here and make it unique. Before I even, because you sometimes hear from other bloggers, man, I photographed it, I was ready to make the post live and this and that, and now the brand doesn't like it. And now but they told me I had free reign to be creative. But that still means that somewhere along the line, as a creator, you have to go back and forth and say, hey, remember this, I know this is, but show brands how what you're creating is going to have your take on it or your signature. How's it going to be unique? You know, I mean, I had this phone call this morning, so that's why that was fresh.
Yeah.
But that's really helpful because then together you can work to make this post really great.
Okay, awesome. So I know you guys, like looking at your track record and your footprints across the internet, are on multiple social networks. You know, your blog obviously, but then are also pushing content out. To what extent do you lean more towards one or the other? Do you post something on the blog and then you automatically post the same thumbnail to everything? And to what degree are you curating content to the specific needs and design aesthetic of those platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important. I think certain platforms respond well to different styles. So, you know, what works really well on Instagram is not necessarily going to work on Pinterest. And so you have to do some research and figure out what those mediums are responding to, and then actually take the time, which is more time, to craft you know, images that work for that platform. I think it's really important. So I try to not just copy and paste content across the board and sort of post and then repost and repost and repost. You have to be a little bit more mindful these days, I think, to really take advantage of, you know, what is Instagram good for, how are people using it, and then sort of work in that model to find something that works.
Okay, so from the other side, kind of going, all right, so they're posting on a bunch of different stuff. You all have pretty decent followings on all the different social media groups. If you're starting a campaign, are you saying this is an Instagram campaign, or are you saying, okay, we're doing this veggie drizzle thing, we need it on everything? And then are you looking for someone that's strong on all platforms? Or are you going for, I want the Instagram star for veggie dips, and that's all we're doing is pushing Instagram? No,
we're definitely always, you know, picking channels that we think will fit the demo and the target of the product we're trying to push. And same with the influencers. We definitely want to work with the best influencers by space versus finding one with, you know, an okay presence on a bunch.
Okay.
For us, it depends. There's some brands that we have almost a network established where there's content coming in throughout the year that we work into our own social calendars. So a blogger in that case might post on their blog, and then they would provide us with photos and assets and say, here's a good pin, here's a good Instagram post, and we'll work that in months in advance to our social calendars so that we make sure we're using it. But on the other hand, a lot of times now we are really looking for an Instagram campaign. I think Instagram's probably the biggest right now, where that's becoming so specific, where you can reach someone and convince someone that, you know, it's a great product to try just on one platform. I know a lot of our beauty campaigns are now turning to Instagram focused and very Instagram specific, but it depends on the campaign and it depends on the content.
When you're working with someone, like let's pick the beauty campaign, what is the likelihood that you are going to repost something they've posted about the brand on the brand's site? Because I can say that's probably part of the incentive. Like Tourism Australia, their whole shtick is finding Instagram photos of people, and they don't post any of their own stuff. There's nothing that they've paid to create. It's about promoting their promoters. So how often are you seeing, like as an incentive, I go, I might be on, you know, to millions of people on this brand, and I only have, you know, 15,000 followers. So is that an incentive at all for the right?
It absolutely is. I think that that's something that we're noticing with some of the larger influencers can be pretty expensive to work with, and they might actually have a larger reach than the brand too, which is great, and I love that. And then there's some that are really growing and up and coming, and their content is unbelievable, and in that case, it's really smart for a brand for us to be able to work with them, and we post it maybe on our own blog, or we share it across our own social, or we incorporate it into a pin that we promote, things like that, where we do want to leverage that content. It doesn't always happen that way. Just like one example from what I do is I'm in retail marketing, so sometimes we're working with a brand and a retailer, and we don't own the brand's channels or the retailer's channels, so in those cases we can't really, but whenever we do manage and own the platforms and we plan for those, we plan to be able to incorporate them.
For us, on Javiana's, the sandals brand I work on, UGC is a huge part of our plan on Instagram. Almost every other post involves UGC. We just think that's a great way to engage with the fans.
User-generated content.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm a rookie here.
Yeah. It's a great way for us to get content and really encourages the fan base to continue to submit photos. They love being featured.
Okay, cool. So we've covered some kind of photography, blogging, whatever. Before we leave photography, I know both of you guys have quite a bit of stuff on Pinterest, and we had talked about what are your lead traffic generators. And I know it's high enough that it's at least worth mentioning. And I'm curious how brands, like, do you guys go, so let me start this because I do want to tie it in, because I'm curious how brands look at Pinterest. So to what degree are you guys using Pinterest? How are you using it? And what is the ROI of that time investment to people coming to your blog or engaging with your brand?
Pinterest is huge, and I think it really pays off to take the extra 5 minutes to create Pinterest-specific images. And as somebody, Pinterest is just another tool, and you should look at it as strategic. And so I have different boards in which I create different images within that same recipe or post. So if I have a recipe that it's naturally gluten-free or naturally paleo, I'm not going to go promote it as paleo all over the place, but I am going to create maybe something that's more paleo-driven or more gluten-free driven for those specific boards. So people that follow those boards can really see it, and then it can gain traction that way. And then, but that same recipe, it's super simple and super easy and great to pack in a lunchbox. So I might put that very simplified without all the other things and that description on my lunch or easy lunches board. So taking the time to really look at what are my goals for this pin or this image and create a new one, or even when I'm photographing, I'm taking those 5 minutes to make an outline of the images that I'm going to need to extract, because it takes 5 minutes versus recreating an entire shoot or cooking something that it's horrible to have to do that. So I do create a list, very strategic, and go, what are the assets that I need? So then I can create a huge variety of pins and social images, and oftentimes I share those with the brand as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll also say, I mean, a struggle I had was I was posting recipes for years before Pinterest even. So figuring out a way to go back in time and bring those to life with either new photos or just taking current photos but putting them in like an interesting collage or something, those kinds of things do really well on Pinterest. So figuring out how to use maybe photos that you already have or something like that, but just combining them in a very visual fashion is great. And you can just go on Pinterest and see the pins that are performing well, and then use Photoshop or something to bring that layout into your own template, use your own images, and then it's a good way to bring old content sort of back to life.
Oh, that's awesome. Because it's kind of like your book. What do you do with leftovers?
Leftover
how do we repurpose
content.
This? So is Pinterest on y'all's radar? I mean, so when we're looking at the metrics that they showed earlier in the day, obviously, YouTube, Facebook, top tier, and as you move down, Pinterest is maybe that third tier. But if you can find a specialist in that has eyeballs, it's obviously of value. I mean, how much are you looking at that? How much are you making sure that a campaign is having some reach into Pinterest?
For us, it depends on the demographic we're trying to reach. If it's moms who are a bit older, Pinterest makes sense. Food always plays well on Pinterest. So for a lot of my brands right now, like Vineyard or veggie dressings for Marzetti, we wanted to use Pinterest, but we decided not to just post pictures of the product with a recipe. We decided to use infographics, which we know always play really well on Pinterest. So that gives the user some additional information, like what lettuce pairs well with a certain type of dressing, and that extra information was really successful for the fan base. So
would you be having that created in-house and pushing it to your influencers, or you're saying, hey, we're looking for an infographic that says this about the brand, and they're creating it on your behalf?
In this particular case, we actually did both. We used influencers and pushed out our own content.
Okay, all right. Pinterest on your radar?
Absolutely. Pinterest is huge, especially for food. I know there was just an article recently where people are shopping in store and they're checking Pinterest for recipe ideas and ingredient lists. So we definitely want to be one of the ingredients on those lists when we're talking about a food brand. So we definitely have a big focus there. From the influencer campaign perspective, that's one of the reasons we do look for reach and engagement there. But also just from a brand management perspective, really creating content specific for Pinterest. So when we're creating our content, making sure we have a great vertical shot, different things like that. And also when we're working with influencers, that we are leveraging a lot of that content, and it might be the same recipe pinned with different images 5 different times across boards, because one of the things about Pinterest that's so great is something could go viral a year later, 3 months later, a month later, because search is so huge with Pinterest now. So we definitely want to be on the platform. Promoted pins are something that we have tested and absolutely love. So I like Pinterest, but also making sure it's the right demographic, of course.
And just piggybacking off of that, you know, Pinterest and search is huge. Google crawls Pinterest and ranks it higher than any other social network. So for us, we always make sure our SEO team's giving us best performing keywords from Google to integrate on the pins and even the page titles of the pins.
So apparently you're doing the right thing. Congratulations. Speaking of doing the right thing, obviously we're seeing a huge growth in video. You know, thanks to iPhone and other smart devices being able to get video up and shared through Vine or even doing live stuff with Periscope. How are you guys currently using video, and to what extent is there an ROI of your time and or investment if you're going to have to hire somebody to edit if you don't do that yourself?
I feel like you're better at video than me.
So I wanted to do video for a long time, and I kept hearing, you know, I think a lot of people, it's like, I want to do video, I just don't know how to get into it. It seems really technical, the editing. In spite of what you hear, that it's super easy to grab an iPhone and just shoot video, that's just not the kind of stuff that I put out. So, and what I mean by that is that I have, you know, I think you and I struggle with the fact that we have cookbooks, we do things for magazines, we take certain photography, and then I don't want to tank it at the video level. So when you put out a certain quality, I feel that it's important to keep that across all channels. And so I held out for a long time, and then last year when I competed on Food Network, I learned a lot, and then I was able to take that knowledge, and now I pre-produce all our video content. So all the time that I've been wanting to do it, it paid off to really create great videos that now are highly shareable and highly viewed in the search. So it pays off to take the time to do them right and to get to know your audience. If your audience is not engaged after a minute 58, then don't make 4-minute videos. Cut them down to 2 minutes. And so just getting to know what the people, you know, want, and also your target audience. You think you might be making videos for moms, but maybe 12-year-olds are watching it. So again, just kind of being really tuned with who's watching and what do they want to see. So then the investment of your time and if you're working on something sponsored, then the value is there, because then you really are creating the kind of content that will attract that type of target audience that they too have.
Okay, yeah, I sympathize with that. Yeah, I feel like one of the things that we're starting to play with is Periscope, and I know it was like last on the list, but because of Periscope, we're able to do stuff that is personal, and so it doesn't have to be high quality yet. It's just it's about the approachability. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves with, like you talked about your brand being the brand and then the mom behind the brand.
Right.
And maybe in the mom behind the brand, the intimacy and approachability of Periscope or Vine or whatever might play that out. But we had talked about what you guys are seeing as getting engaged with, and like, so you were saying that on Facebook, a video is getting thousands of views, but not much engagement. And then we talked a little bit about what, as a brand, you're looking at a certain aesthetic and things that are like this top-down view of a recipe being done, seeing more success. So from a brand perspective, can you talk a bit about what you're looking for in video and what you're finding is successful?
Sure. So for us, we always want to incorporate video when we have to teach a new usage behavior for the product we're trying to sell. So right now it's veggie drizzles, and it's a finishing cooking sauce, which has never existed before. So video is a great place for us to, you know, work with influencers to teach this behavior and how to use a new product.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think it's not video just because video is cool. Like, I remember when Snapchat came out, I got constantly asked, like, should we be on Snapchat? And I would be like, well, your demographic is 55 plus, so probably not. So I always think about that with video too, and do we want to create video because it's adding value, or do we want to create video because video is all the buzz right now? So we always take that step to make sure we're adding value, and I think a lot of the videos, at least I'm personally seeing now, like a lot of BuzzFeed does with food, is it's a shot of only the food, and it's sped up, and it's like I could see how to make it without playing sound. And I think that's also critical, because if you think about where videos are being consumed, Instagram, Facebook, the majority of the time it's being played without sound. So if you're introducing your video for a minute and you're talking, you're probably going to lose people. So I kind of think about that with video, and we're not going to try to force it or rush it, but when it's really adding value and making sense, that's when we're going to try to use it.
Second, I'm taking some notes.
This is where video pre-production really it's super important. You can't just go up there and go like, hey, let me teach you how to make these awesome quiches today because blah, blah, blah. And you'd really have to think about, what am I going to tell them in the first 8 seconds that they'll keep watching? And so again, it's just going with that. Or even if they're not listening to it via, there's no audio, how do I come across in those first 8 seconds without audio? And then they'll go like, oh, let me see how that's made. So again, it's really important.
So when we were talking about the diving blogging stuff, she's like, I went out and I got 15 grand worth of equipment. At what point do you go, okay, it's time for me to, make an investment in my business? Is video that type of investment? What is the first investment that you make to go from, I'm casually doing this, I'm working with someone like IZEA, I'm making some money, but I want to take it to the next level? Do you remember making an investment that was like, this is for reals?
In the food world?
No, in your blogging, what you're doing, making it a business.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming you have a computer already, but I mean, definitely, I think some sort of decent camera is really important. You can take great photos on your phone these days, but if you want something that's going to be easy to edit and is going to be, look good in print, if you ever get there, you might want to print certain recipes, you need a little bit higher resolution. So that, for me, that was the first big investment where I had to tell my wife, like, listen, this is serious money. It's okay.
Yeah, I'd say camera, video. Like some of the cameras now come with video, and that's really great. And audio is everything, so make sure, I kind of thought about those things. Does the camera have an input for me to have audio in there? Your iPhone now, they do have certain audio capabilities. But what kind of photos are you taking? Do you like with the blurred background? Like, you just have to understand photography and video and know what your style is before you go out and make the investment. Because an iPhone could be just great if you're just taking lifestyle photos of your kids or activities or crafting, that you don't have to show depth or scope. So again, knowing what your style is before you go out and spend all this money.
Gotcha. So just on that a little bit, it's so easy to take a picture with your phone and publish.
Right.
But what you're saying is we take photos with a nice DSLR, we maybe do a little Photoshop tweak, and then we publish. So just take me quickly through what is the process there. So you've done a recipe, you've done some food photography. How do you select which one goes on Instagram or goes on Facebook?
I would say, typically when I shoot a recipe, I'll shoot 80 photos of it, and then it's just figuring out, certain things I prefer on Instagram, so like a lighter feel, so I'll bump up the contrast and brightness a little bit for those. But then on my blog, I like a more natural look kind of, so it just depends. And it takes a lot of practice. Like, you can't expect to push publish on your first post, unless you're a genius, and get it 100% right. You're learning new stuff every day. I still every day am learning new things, learning ways to tweak recipes. I'm sure Laura's the same. So it's a constant learning process, which is half the fun,
Yeah, for Instagram, my style is much more behind the scenes. So even though I'm shooting with a DSLR with my food, I take out my iPhone and I instantly shoot it, or I'll even take a selfie eating it or one of my kids eating it, because that's what my style is. And so I want to show people the process of something that they'll see published, next week. Or I'll take the photo and we really share it 3 months later, because that's kind of when the editorial calendar allows it. But the point is that the style matches what I'm currently sharing. And so you don't have to have a DSLR camera and sync it and go through the whole process. You can just take one with your iPhone if that's what your style on your social accounts is.
Okay, cool. So kind of like that, I like that, having the two, because the immediacy of Instagram, it's like, oh, we were right there. That's solid. So, okay, so the play on that of, you guys have just basically said, we have some stuff that we try to make super glossy, perfect. We've totally curated this, and some stuff that you've obviously thought about, but is maybe not as, you're not as persnickety about it. So looking at both of those, when is a post you guys get giddy about it? Like, you've worked with some, paid sponsorship content, and you go, oh, they got it right. Oh, this is amazing. Yes, we want to keep working with this person. So when, in your campaigns that you've done, let's say in the last year, when has something gotten you giddy and someone that you're working with really got it right?
I'll let you take it.
I guess going to the back end of how it's doing, engagement, anytime we see just a ton of engagement, or wow, this is being shared so much on Facebook and it wasn't even sponsored, because we don't really have that much reach on Facebook anymore. So things like that. But I think about the content itself, when it really kind of captures the brand essence, but in that blogger's voice, and maybe the product is included, but like subtly, and it's natural and organic, and it just looks like it was a picture that, you know, there's sometimes where a package you could tell is forced into a photo and doesn't really belong there. It's not even the right color for the rest of the color scheme, but whenever it's natural and it makes sense, and you know, we get really, really excited about that content, and then we get even more excited when it starts performing.
I think whenever you're working with an influencer and they can make the content just feel natural and native, it is successful for us. We worked with Michelle Phan, you know, when she was blowing up a bit a few years ago, you know, the YouTube celebrity for Dr. Pepper, and she created, you know, so many extra takes for us to choose from, which is really rare, I think, for an influencer when you're just paying them for one shot. So I think she went above and beyond, and I think you can attribute some of her success to that extra effort.
So it's, I mean, I'm sure there are some times you're working with a brand, you're like, we're going to go the extra mile because I'm going to do more work with these guys. Is there times where you've kind of almost reverse courted the brand?
For sure.
Yeah, sure. You want to go?
You want to? I mean, it sounds really silly, but if you really want to work with a brand and you're like, oh man, this is a one-time thing, you should never look at something as an opportunity that to be a one-time thing. If it's a one-time thing, I'm like, well, you know what? This is my opportunity to go that extra mile to show that I really want to work with them long-term, and then create those extra shots. Or I'll even be in the middle of recipe development and like take an iPhone photo and send it to the my brand contact and go, hey, what do you think? Do you like this? They actually love hearing that you're working on their stuff and not waiting like 4 weeks or 6 weeks down the road when it actually goes live. Like, it's that, you know, back and forth that go like, man, this person really likes us. You know, I've gained great relationships from just thinking about it, you know, like, oh, you know, maybe they want to see what I'm working on and send it their way, or incorporating that brand on something totally not sponsored, not normal, because I usually pick brands that I would normally use anyway, so they are already part of my lifestyle, and sometimes I'm like, I think about it, I tag them, even though it's not part of a campaign, but I'm like, hey, I really love that.
Do you send them an invoice?
No.
Oh, no, okay, all right, just checking.
I'll say, you know, the other thing you can think of is offering more upfront to a brand. So I think a lot of times brands are unaware of some of the different platforms that might be available.
Sure.
So a campaign that I'm working on this fall is from a wine company, and they had this great campaign, and you know, I put a bid for it and everything, and the actual campaign like didn't include a blog post. It was just they wanted recipes developed for their thing, which was like this cedar box that they're sending out their wine in, and you can take apart the box and use the cedar to like grill on, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But they didn't even consider the fact that I could, you know, make a blog post as well. So I kind of included that as like a bonus, and then they like didn't even think because which was amazing
win-win,
to me.
And they're going, hey, you want to see the how-to? Go visit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well done, sir. Well done. That's nice. Okay, so I want to talk, because we are brick and mortar. So although we have some online classes, we are trying to get butts in the seats. And so two things. You know, I know you guys work with brands that have you really were trying to mobilize people to go do something. Where have you seen success? You know, like I know one of you guys did like Australia's Pizza Hut had a thing. Maybe it was, who did this one? Well, regardless, are you working with, because I don't want to not talk about that, because I know, like for us, the challenge is getting actual people to mobilize and do something, not just share. Do you guys have any campaigns that you work on in that regard? Or is it mostly just getting people to talk about the brands online?
I can talk about that.
Yeah, you can start.
So we have a brand from Marzetti called Sister Schubert, and our campaign coming up is Share Warmth, and it's a charity-focused campaign. We're really going to encourage people to do charity and submit it as UGC for prizes and incentivize them that way. So that's, you know, an opportunity for us to work with a brand and also encourage that behavior and share that out, and it's exciting because it's for a good cause.
Okay. Groovy, anything to add?
Yeah, well, I'm a retail marketing agency. I'm at a retail marketing agency, so sales are always like top of mind, and it's always hard to track because there's so many steps that someone might take. They might see a pin in store and decide to buy a product, but we would have no way of knowing that. So anytime, and this kind of comes in comments, where I'll read Instagram comments or blog comments, and it'll say like, wow, that product's amazing, I never thought of it, I just went to the store and bought it. And to me, like, I screenshot that, that's like success in my book. So anytime that we can see that, and a lot of times it's hard to track, we always track the digital calls to action, but when we're talking about a CPG where you would pick it up in the store, a digital call to action is great, but they are gonna buy the product a different way, not digitally. So anytime we can get that, qualitative over the quantitative too.
Okay, awesome. So we got about 10 minutes, and we want to leave some time for questions if anybody has one. So this will kind of be the last question that we do from the stage, and if you have questions, we can take them from there. There's someone that will run a microphone around. Actually, no, let's just go ahead and do that. You guys cool with that? Because
cool.
I'm sure you guys have questions that we have not addressed, and that'll give us 10 minutes. So anyone want to address the experts up here with your burning question? Yes. Someone's coming behind you with a microphone.
This is for Momables. Tell us more about what you learned from being on the Food Network.
I have learned that everything is in preparation for the opportunity. So, just being really dedicated of what it is that you do really well. I went on Food Network and won with a waffle sandwich, and that's what I do really great. I make great family food, and I stuck to that. I didn't try to be anyone else or create something really elaborate. I just stuck to what I knew how to do great, and that I still do that online. And how I work with brands is the same thing. I guide them through, this is what I do best. And let's create something around what my people come to see my recipes for. So that's really what I learned.
Awesome. In the middle, over here. She's coming with the microphone over there. It's the young lady standing up, moving to the edge. Go to her.
Hi. I was wondering, when and if you receive pitches from PR professionals, what is something you look for in order to finish reading it and actually feel the need to engage with them?
Oh, great question. Yeah. So I look for a few things. I mean, one, I think it's important that they know your voice. So I like it when a PR person or company contacts me and has clearly read my blog, knows a little bit about my style, and they're not just sort of blanketing me in with everybody else. So a little bit of specific focus is good, I think. I don't know, do you have anything else, Laura, that you like to see?
I like to know pretty soon in the conversation, maybe not the first email, but if I reply, let me know if there's a budget for this. And I hate to sound like that, but it really determines where you fall in my business and how we're going to move through this. You want to send us samples, that's awesome, but I often get we just sent you samples and they arrived today and I haven't had a chance to open the box. So really being really clear in the expectation of what you have, what are you looking for in us and working with us? Like, how can we be an asset to you right off the bat? And if you've looked at our sites and our reach, you might have an idea that people like us, sometimes, usually, we might have a team, and so there is an investment on our part. So that's why some of us have to take sponsor content of that sort of thing. So again, it's just letting us know pretty soon, not 6 emails later.
Right. Yep.
From the brand side, that's such an interesting question because there's such a gray area of PR firms traditionally handling talent and handling these influencer buys, whereas from a brand now, we're always trying to steal that business now. We feel like it should sit with us and work closely with the influencers. So I just think it's a funny question coming from a PR agency, and that's still the gray area. We're not sure who should handle that buy.
Right.
Yeah, we're dealing with the same thing where we'll be managing social platforms for a brand, and it just makes sense for us to also manage their influencer programs, and we're actually taking a lot of business from PR agencies because of that, and it just makes a lot of more sense, and we understand the landscape and things like that.
And we love it when brands reach out because that you stop playing the telephone game, so we no longer have to go through the agency to the brand. Like sometimes I'll go like, is there somebody from the brand we can just jump on a quick call? Because that clarifies so many things that can often get lost or mistranslated in email, just to make things really clear of how we're going to be working together, or we could work together. Question right there.
Question.
We got a couple in the middle here, towards the back. Hey, don't be shy. Go throw that thing up.
Stand up.
There you go.
Hi, if you guys could help us understand what kind of team you have that helps you get all of your assets ready and.
You gotta do it all by yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not real.
Yeah. It's no joke. Yeah, it's mostly a one-man shop in my world. I have a few, people that help with fringe stuff. I shouldn't say fringe. I mean, I have like a designer who helped design my site. But as far as coming up with the content and photographing it and writing it and recipe developing, that's pretty much all me, mostly because I'm a control freak and I like to be in charge of that. But yeah, for me, I mean, Laura might be in a different situation, but that's my side.
I started all me, and I often get asked, like, what's the first thing you hired out? And that would be probably a VA to handle some of the what I call repetitive tasks of gathering analytics, gathering posts, sharing, scheduling, going through our checklists on Basecamp to make sure that I'm meeting all the campaign criteria. Some of the things are really repetitive, but all of the creative is usually me. But when you're only handling 1 or 2 sponsored campaigns a month, I feel like there's really no room for, like, nothing should really fall through the cracks. But when you're handling 6, 8, and some of the things that I'm doing, like traveling for media opportunities or press things, like if I'm not in the office and I'm clearly not tweeting it out, or, so I really need someone to make sure that has my back covered. So again, it depends on the scope of work that you're working in, and starting really slow.
Yeah, good one. Up front? If you just want to say it, I'll repeat it.
Yeah.
So from a brand perspective, as someone that's focused on creating content on Periscope or any live streaming platform, what would make a brand more comfortable with creating a campaign with an influencer, because it is live so you can't see it before?
Ooh, that is so good. I was
good
curious about that
question,
before. Okay, so the question is, when you're using a live platform like Periscope or Meerkat or something, as a brand, there's no like bleep button. How does that work? So how does a brand look at this emerging media? And if they are a rock star on Periscope, but you don't have the ability to go beep if they say something not on point, how does a brand work in that medium?
I haven't been able to sell it through yet for any of my brands. They've been too hesitant because of that. Snapchat, at least with stories, there's a little bit of lead time where you can edit a bit, but I'd say the best advice is to be present at the event and say that you can have approvals with the brand, and you're open to that so they can sort of team up and do it together.
Yeah, I think that we would probably set up a lot of parameters before and go through, like, there's certain things you just wouldn't necessarily know about a brand. Like, we don't want you to say X and you'd be like, oh, that's how, I always like Kleenex is a good example, where you grab a tissue and you say Kleenex, but not every tissue is actually the Kleenex brand. So little things like that, but I know it kind of in what you were saying too, like there's a lot of brands and clients that just like wouldn't necessarily be very comfortable with that. So it is something that they'd have to get used to and get comfortable with that idea. But I think the more work that can be done up front to just be like, here are our guidelines, here's what we're looking for, here's what, the no-nos of don't say this, then that will help ease those, nerves.
Yeah, I think as a content creator, I would be hesitant to do that also, just because I think it's nice to have that back and forth with who you're working with, to get some approval on the subject. So, I mean, I would be hesitant, I think, even to offer that as an option as a content creator, like a live thing.
Yes.
So it's probably going to start in-house. Would you say that's probably accurate? Like before you'd go to a third party, you guys would start tinkering with this in-house where you can control messaging more?
Yeah, possibly, and it would be great, if an influencer could get us that backstage access, that exclusive feel, then we would want to work with an influencer. But the few times I've proposed it, since it's come out, they've been too hesitant with the approvals because they have to be there standing with the influencer to actually get it.
Okay. Sorry, I jumped in.
No, that's the thing. Like, we were gonna jump on a Periscope campaign because people wanted to see how I cook behind the scenes, but the logistics of cleaning out the refrigerator, the pantry, making sure that there are no competitive brands, that everything's pre-measured. Like, the thing about that tool is that it's supposed to be like unscripted in real life, and yet if I have to pre-measure things and you're not catching me with measuring it out, or I'm using a dish that's not part of one of the brands that this major brand owns, and so it really it just turned out to not be worth it in the food field. It's great at an event because they can give people an inside look of what it's like, but in the kitchen, for me, it just didn't pan out as much as we wanted to do it.
Well, we have the red blinking light, so you can't ask any more questions. Sorry, we're done. Thank you guys. It was awesome and informative for me. I actually took notes. So.